Hello friends, my name is Sanjay. I am a freelancer trainer in several topics including project management professional PMP. This particular video I have created specifically for those people who are thinking of appearing for the PMP course and followed by that an exam. Lot of questions are there in the mind of the people since it is good amount of investment in terms of the money as well as the efforts. So there are several questions people need an answer before they decide to join a training and then later give the exam. This video is an attempt to answer lot of these questions there. This video has two parts. The first one is general information like what's PMI, Project Management Institute, what is PMP certification, who should attempt to join this course as well as the exam, what are the prerequisites and so on and so forth, what is shown onto the left side of the screen. The second part of this video, a small one, actually speaks very specific about how do you choose the PMP training service provider. There are several in the market and they are giving different options there. However, what should be the criteria by which you should choose is one more big question which participants do have, and that's where I am going to tell you, saying that what should you look for such training service provider if you are in that particular thought process, if you are in that process of selecting an appropriate vendor for you. So let's try to understand what is this PMP course, what's the exam, what's the certification, little more in that. To begin with, the PMI stands for Project Management Institute. It's a US-based not-for-profit organization. They run several things, and the main thing called as the PMBOK, the book, which is a sort of a project management standard, which is published by the PMI, is the reference book, the major reference book for this PMP examination. And I'm sure you would be knowing it. They are involved in several things, like professional standards. They are not limited to project management. They write, program management standard, portfolio management standard, agile related standards, risk related standards. So all those things. That's about the PMI, and PMI are the one who are, conducting these exams for us. Coming to our specific topic, PMP. PMP is an acronym of something called as Project Management Professional. It is probably the most accepted certification in the area of the project management. A lot of people are certified for, PMP. For example, this is an extract taken few days back. And it says that there are, by 2027, there would be a need of 2.2 million. So that's the huge need which is there. And one of the route to that particular thing is actually doing the PMP certification. While PMP is a good certification, the main question comes saying that, is that suitable for me? As an individual, should I do it? Now, here we are trying to put some light on that. Typically, the practicing project manager who may not have any certification in the past, or their titles might change. For example, they might be in certain organization, they are called as the program managers. Sometimes they are called as the delivery managers, team leads, tech leads, several things, different domains, different industries use different titles. So how would I say that whether it suits? Remember, if your role involves something called as a planning, execution and monitoring and control, then typically that would be suitable for the project management. Remember, this has to be in the area of the projects, which means it has to be a definite start and definite end. People who are specifically doing the operation related things, people who are working into the manufacturing or the sales or something like that, for them this certification is not very suitable. All these people, what they can actually do, there are two distinct things. One, their knowledge will improve. Obviously this knowledge is very valuable. It's a thick book in a way, and a lot of tough questions there. It will improve your knowledge, and then finally it will actually certify you. So those are the two things which you should look forward for this investment. As per the PMI, there are certain criteria. First one is there has to be a minimum 36 months of the project management role. Remember, your title, as I told you, may not be project manager. It could be something different. But as long as it is involved into something called as the projects, which includes planning, execution, and monitoring and control, that's good enough. However, I would say that if there is some MBA, someone who has done the post graduation and has only done 36 months of the thing, I would not recommend him to go ahead with this certification. My suggestion here would be that at least you would have spent 7 years of the total experience in the industry. Then doing this will actually make a more sense. For a very simple reason, friends, is that finally book can't teach you everything. A lot of things you will learn and understand only in the real project. So basically, unless you have a good experience, you would not be able to, crack this exam very easily. People who are playing the technical roles for a while, maybe for 6 7 years, 10 years, and now wish to move into the management role, for them also this is a brilliant course. It could be very useful and it might help them to take the further step in the career. Particularly in the rest of the world, other than UK, which is United Kingdom, and Europe, these are the places where there is another certification called as Prince 2, which is preferred by several people. Rest of the world broadly goes with the PMP. So if your customer happens to be in any of these things like US, India, Middle East, Asia, and so on and so forth, it is quite possible PMP would be more useful as compared to Prince 2. And remember, one more important thing you must remember before we go ahead and do any commitment here is that after 35 hours of training, the minimum 35 hours of training is required. But after that, you need to commit at least 2 to 3 hours per day for 3 months. A minimum of 2 to 3 hours per day for 3 months. If you can't do it, my suggestion to you is that hold on, don't invest money into this if you are not able to do it. Cracking this exam only on the basis of the training is almost impossible. You will need to do a good amount of study even after the training. And that's where my suggestion to you, friends, is that if you are committed to that, then only please take this particular step ahead. The prerequisites for you to give the PMP exam, we spoke about it before. 36 months of the project experience, which means you need to demonstrate it by showing that in which project did you work, from what date to what date, and so on and so forth. I will speak about that process a bit while from now. And another thing is called a 35 hours of the project management training. Remember, they call it as a project management education. They don't, by the way, specify that it has to be with a specific curriculum. You need not have to learn only PMP based on a book called as PMBOK and do it. You can actually attend any of the training as long as you are very sure it is giving you a confidence to crack the exam. They are comfortable with that. However, my suggestion here is, friends, that don't try to do that. It's risky. You should attend a training which is based on the PMBOK, currently version 6. The last part there is added by me. It is not actually on the PMI criteria, they don't say, but practical experience. Practical experience is very important, friends. Otherwise, these theories are a little tricky. There is a subjectivity and there is a matter of understanding by the participant. And this understanding would come only when you have a practical experience. Unless you have this practical experience, your answers could be extremely theoretical and you may not really get a complete feel of what is this, project management as a. So here are the steps which you need to take for PMP examination. First one, I would always recommend take a membership of PMI. What is membership of PMI? It costs you 139 US dollars, which you can do anytime. This doesn't need any specific qualification like that 36 months of the project management, nothing. Citizen of any country in the world can take the PMI membership. What do you get by this membership is that you would be able to download the official version of something called as a PMBOK, which is a reference material for this, and several other things. You don't take the membership of PMP, you take the membership of PMI. So the standards like the project management standard, which is PMBOK, program management, risk management, agile related, all those publications which are by the PMP, the members can download. So you should take the membership first. Typically, this membership in a way is self-sponsored. I will explain it to you in a little while from now. Then start preparing the CV. You can actually do that directly. You can't upload a Word document or anything. You need to actually put it field by field, So log on to PMI, create your user ID and say that I want to apply for the PMP, and those, things will come. Now there are three parts. There are specifically three parts of the thing which I will explain it to you and then come back to the steps. So there you go. The first part is the general information like what's your name, what's your qualification, the basic qualification, the industry and domain in which you are working, your basic education qualification, etc. These all things are there in the part one, which you can fill in right away. There is nothing related to the training. Part two is all about the training which you have attended for 35 hours. This is where the 35 hours of training you need to actually go ahead. So you need to say who is the service provider, what was the name, what was the start and end of that training, and then reference. Now, wherever it says reference, you need to give an email ID and a phone number of an individual who will actually go ahead and vouch, saying that yes, whatever details you are claiming are right. However, this is not required when you fill in the application. You need to put the references, but no proofs are required to be submitted when you submit the application. Only in case your application is chosen for an audit. Now, the typical ratio, as I remember, is 1 out of the 7 applications are typically chosen for an audit. In that situation, you need to actually take a print of your application and attach these documents there with the signature of that individual. And that's where these references are very important. The number, the phone number, and the name of the person and mail ID what you are giving, ensure that they are correct, because they need to be, they will be required in case your application is chosen for the audit. The last part is little tricky, part 3, that is all about your project experience. So there is a button called as add a project. You need to add a project. So first project, you need to go ahead and say that, what was the title of the project, a very short one, then a long text, maybe up to the 500, characters. You need to go ahead and say that what was your role into that project. Then when did the project start? When did it end? Similar to the, project management education reference, with whom did you work onto that, preferably the manager with whom you work, his phone number, his email ID, and the budget. The budget is important because that says that what is the typical size of this project. And once you go ahead and submit this, let's say this project you have worked for 3 months, so submit it, it will again enable a button called as add new project. You need to put some more. Always start filling in your last project first, so the current project where you are working, you should choose to fill it first and then keep on going backward. Now this add project button will keep on appearing until the cumulative of that becomes 36 months. The moment it becomes 36 months, it said that now you are ready to submit this application. So you should actually go ahead and submit it there. Now coming back to the steps, this was that, complete the application form as the PMI member. Wait for the approval letter. Typically within 3 business days, they will come back to you saying that yes, they have approved it. As I told you, in certain situation, they might actually come back and say that your application is chosen for audit. In that situation, you need to take a hard copy printout of the application, what you have already submitted. Go to those individuals or send those hard copies to those individuals to whom you have given as a reference. They need to sign it there, and when they are signing it there, they are just only saying that whatever information you have claimed is right. It is not that, they are going to do it like your manager. So you can give their personal email ID as well. Even if that particular individual has left that organization where you work with him, doesn't matter, because he is not doing it as a manager. He is actually confirming that whatever claims you are doing in that application are right. So ensure that you are in touch with that person whose name you have given for all those projects. And then once it happens, you need to pay the fees. Now the fees will be $400 if you have already taken the membership. But if you are not a member, then the fees will be 555. And this is what I was saying, friends, is that membership is almost sort of a sales sponsor, which means if you don't become the member, anyway, you'll have to pay the fees, which is almost equivalent to the membership plus exam fees. So it's better to take the membership. And then there are two options. These days there are two options. One is that you can give the exam in the Pearson Test Center. So you need to check which city you want to give that exam. Then they will show you the list of test centers. You select the test center and they will show you the available slots. You need to book it there. Typically, it's a 4 hour of slot. So typically in a given center, there would be 3 slots which are available for each of the machine. So that's first option. The second option, which they have actually introduced in 2020 after the COVID, is that you can also give this exam remotely, remotely proctored, in the sense you can give it from your home with a laptop which has a camera and all those things. But my recommendation to you that don't go with option 2. There are some challenges. The challenge there is that then the responsibility of the infrastructure, the responsibility of the network and all that thing lies completely on you. And if they find any issues there, they might cancel your exam, and that's where it's better not to do it. That's what is about these steps for the PMP exam. You should realize one more thing here, is that sometimes people go ahead and apply, and they do everything except for paying the fees. If this doesn't happen, then there is always a tendency to keep on postponing this challenge. What does it mean? People say that let me study a little more and then I will book the exam. Let me study more and then I will book the exam. Remember, that will never happen. The real motivation to study for 2 to 3 hours every day for 3 months will only come after you pay the exam. Unless there is a skin in the game doesn't become funny. Game doesn't become interesting. And that's where my suggestion to you is that pay that fees and then prepare for 3 months. You will certainly go ahead and clear that exam. The recommended study material for you to prepare: the PMBOK, basically project management. Current version is 6. Version 7 is going to come very soon, friends, but it is not yet released. And today we are in the month of March 2021. So I expect that to come up very soon. But friends, it should not worry you, because in the past, at least, I have seen that whenever PMI goes ahead and changes the version of the PMBOK, the exams based on the new version will come 1 year later. So if next month they go ahead and launch the version 7, the exams on that will come little later. They will give you enough time to study. So you should continue with this. And then there is Agile Practice Guide. Now these two put together you will get in this book. This book you will be able to download once you are a member. It's a combination of 3 books. This PDF has 3 books, something called as a PMBOK guide and then Agile. So these 3 things are together there. Then I would highly recommend you to take another thing, which is an exam preparation guide. Most popular in this area of the thing is called as Rita Mulcahy. However, I would say that, and I would leave it to you, whichever is there. Most important thing, why do you need an exam guide, is because you will get the good questions there, which are topic by topic. So once you study one chapter, you will be able to probably affirm your knowledge by studying and solving those questions. And that's where Rita Mulcahy is good one. I would leave it to you, whichever is the best thing. And there is one more free document which is available, and that is called as PMI Code of Ethics and Conduct. Just having a glance through that once is useful, because there are some questions which are asked on that. Typically, this is nothing else but PMI says that if you are going to crack the PMP exam and claim yourself to be a PMP certified person, you need to adhere to certain basic ethical standards. And those ethical standards are documented there. It's hardly 7-8 page PDF. You should read. And then there are obviously several free tests, course videos and all that thing. Based on your confidence, based on your style, you can do a lot of these things. But I would say that minimum 2. One is PMBOK with Agile, and then Rita. These 2 together, it will actually give you a fair confidence, and it will say that you are fairly ready to give that exam. Now going to the next one, which is little more tips. First thing, do not use forward planning. What does it mean is that some people make a mistake. They say that let me attend the training and then prepare. And once I am actually confident that I am actually scoring a good thing in the mock papers, then I will book the thing. Remember, this would never happen. We are extremely busy people in our whole of the world. Your job, your domestic things and all that thing, lot of busy things are there. So if you have not booked the date, you will never get time to study it. So what's the way? The way forward is very simple. The day on which your training gets over, book an exam date which is 2.5 to 3 months down the line, and then start preparing backward, which means you'll have to go ahead and study the whole thing in this period, solve at least 2000 questions. Remember, friends, I'm saying 2000 number of questions you need to solve before it, and your score when you are reaching the last part of the phase should reach anywhere above the 80%. Don't try to expect that you will reach more than 90-95% in the mocks. It is difficult. These exams do have a lot of tricky questions there. So reaching around 80% of the score and trying to solve 2000 questions should give you the thing. So what you need to do, you need to book an exam, say that I need to reach this stage. For that, prepare yourself, study yourself accordingly. That there is something called as a processes, and for each of the process there is something called as input, tools and techniques, and outputs. Sometimes people mistake saying that if I remember the whole of the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs and all the processes, I might be able to easily score good question. That's not right thing, friends. It is not all about memorizing all that thing. It is more of an objective of that particular process. It is more about how is that process done. So you need to get a feel of it. And that's where there is always a limitation of the training. It will give you some examples about it, but a lot of things you'll have to map it to your own project, saying that if trainer says that in collect requirement you create requirement documentation, you need to visualize saying that in your project how did you go about it, how did you collected the requirement, and what actually thing you created out of it. Now that's mapping will actually make the the things firm, not remembering whole of the ITTOs. Or then comes the study groups or circles always help. If you have a group of people together who you are studying, do that. It is actually indirectly helping because it brings the peer pressure. When you get to see that there are people who are preparing along with them and they are studying it well, it might automatically motivate you and you might do it. Reading too much of a material, I don't recommend typically. Reading this revision, first revision of the PMBOK, followed by Rita solving all the thing, and one more very specific revision. The second revision will not be whole of the reading. It will be very specific reading is good enough, and that should take around 2 months or 2 to 3 months, and approximately 2 hours. Remember, this would change per person. Every individual has his own style. Some people take more time to understand the same thing. Some people, on the other hand, do it very quickly. But approximately, this is how it should typically work. My suggestion to you is that there is a possibility to reschedule the thing. If you are rescheduling the exam with a notice more than a month, there is no penalty related to that. You can reschedule without any penalty. If you are trying to reschedule it within a month lead time, then there is a penalty. But my suggestion to you is that unless there is a really a life and death situation, don't reschedule it. For a simple reason, this rescheduling will only bring in the thing like exam postpone syndrome. Your preparation will automatically go down. So do it, don't do it, don't reschedule it unnecessarily. It will not make any benefit. It will not give you much of a benefit there. Going to the exam format, how is that exam? It has, first of all, there is a briefing for some 15 minutes of computer tutorial. They will say that how to use that software. It's an online thing. It's a typical computer-based test, CPT, CBT, what we call it as. So it has 4 options, A, B, C, D, and you need to choose one. In the new format, there are a few more questions which are coming on the match the pair and all that. But then they are not too many in nature. It's a 4 hours examination with 180 multiple choice questions, and each question carries 1 mark there. And then it is, it has a huge database. They have a huge data bank, where the question bank rather, and then they are thrown from there. There are 3 parts. Remember, 3 parts are not for these 3 subjects. Don't get mistaken with these business environment, people and process. The questions are completely assorted. This is the distribution. Out of the 180 questions, 8% will come onto the business environment, 42% on the people, and processes on the 50%. But these are not those 3 parts. These 3 parts are only for you to give a bio break. Remember, sitting for 4 hours continuously might be a challenge for some people. And that's why part 1 is from question number 1 to 60. Part number 2 is from 61 to 120, and part number 3 is from 121 to 180. You get a break of 10 minutes, which is absolutely optional. You may take, or you might continue with the next one. But remember, once you go ahead and submit part 1, you cannot go ahead and revisit those answers. So you need to go ahead and submit. Once you submit, the next 60 will appear, and then next 60 will appear. Finally, once you go ahead and submit, there is an immediate result which will come there saying that you cleared that particular exam. There is an optional candidate survey. If you are giving it, and I'm sure you would give it in the Pearson Center, you will also get a scorecard right at the end of the thing, and you might get a message saying that congratulations, you have cleared the PMP, and you would probably feel really great at the end of it for clearing such an interesting and tough exam. One more thing I need to add here, friends, is that there are two major changes which they have introduced from 2nd of January 2021. And these are: one, the question distribution is actually as above. For example, business environment 8%. Here you go. People 42% and processes. Before this, they were actually asking the questions which were distributed on something called as initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and control and closing. Remember, those topics are not moved out. Those topics are there. The only thing is now questions, all 180 questions are mapped to one of these three. That's the one change there. But more than that, the bigger change is that now they are asking 50% questions on something called as adaptive project life cycle. Those people who are coming from the software background would be knowing something called as an agile. Agile is actually a software delivery methodology. Remember, agile is a word used into the software development, but agile is basically a short iteration based delivery, which is in all the industry. And that PMI calls it as adaptive. So out of the 180 questions, 50% questions they are asking with an assumption that you are going to use adaptive project life cycle. Going to next, apart from those books and all that thing, there are few sites. Some of those are really useful. It's a ever growing list. Very often there are so many new questions which which sites come up, and then they have sample questions, some material, some videos, and so on and so forth. So you might actually as well visit some of them. Once you go ahead and clear that particular exam, how do you maintain the PMP? This is how you need to go it. You need to go ahead and ensure that you adhere to the professional code of conduct, which means those ethical standards what they have specified, you need to maintain it. But then apart from that, so if you look at the step, 35 hours of the training, which is what you will attend, with your service provider, then I would say around 90 days you will need to go ahead and prepare. So, this is where I was saying 2.5 to 3 months. So this is that preparation phase, and then you will give an exam. On a given date, you will give that exam. The moment you give that exam and clear that exam, your certificate is valid for next 3 years. So for example, let's say it was in 2021 is when you have given this particular exam and cleared it. So you will get a certificate saying that you are PMP certified, and your certificate is valid up to 2024. It is up to 2024. So in this period, what you need to do is that you need to keep on being in the profession of the project management. What does it mean? Is that you need to keep on claiming something called as a PDU. PDU stands for Professional Delivery Units. It has two broad parts. One is that you need to keep on learning something new about the project management. And then you need to keep on giving something back to the project management as a profession. So you need, for example, you attend any training, you go ahead and claim it on the PMI site with your, login ID. They will say that so let's say you attended some 3 full days of training. You say that I attended this training from this to this. I attended it for 24 hours, you get 24 PDUs. You read, some book, you claim it. You went ahead and attended, some seminar, webinar, you put that. Now, these are all where I am giving you an example. You are trying to learn something. Similarly, you are doing something. So, for example, you gave some presentation, you created some estimation template, you created some better methodology. Now that is giving back. Put together, it need to add to 60. Once those 60 PDUs come, your certificate will be eligible to get extended by 3 years. What do I mean by that? At that point, you need to pay another $150, which is a renewal fees, and with that, your certification will then go up to 2027. So this is how it will go. It will go on forever. So what do I mean is that once you give the exam, you need not have to give that exam again and again. Your certificate is perpetual, provided every 3 years you claim the 60 PDUs. and pay that renewal fees, and it will keep on getting extended forever without giving the exam again. So that's how is the whole process of maintaining this thing after you go ahead and get the PMP certification. So here are the training options for PMP. As mandated by PMI, the training must be 35 hours. It's essential. You need to submit that certificate to PMI in case your application is chosen for the audit. And anyway, you need to actually say that you attended 35 hours of training from what date to date and all that thing. No, there are multiple options. One is, an training or educational service provider like me or like so many people who do these trainings there. Certain times, an organization can run their own course. They might actually go ahead and run a complete PMP course for their internal staff. Either they can do it using their own internal trainers, or sometimes they might do it as a part of, as an outsourcing it to an external trainer. And the third one, which is called as the virtual training. Sometimes, a lot of companies these days, they are offering you a virtual or the e-learning course, which runs you through the thing at your own pace and all that thing. Obviously, any of these modes, finally, they need to actually produce, a 35 hours of the training as well as a certificate there. Remember, friends, if you are choosing to go with the virtual training, be sure that you are comfortable with that, because it is not straight, simple, easy thing. It sometimes is little tricky. You don't get an interaction with the faculty to ask the questions. It's a straight one-on-one, sort of a one-way traffic sometimes. So if you are very comfortable with e-learning there, you can as well do it. Getting additional help there would be a little difficult there. So as long as you are sure about it, you can actually think about it. Otherwise, getting a training from a faculty is always a better option. And here comes the part 2 of the video. As I was saying, that when you are choosing a service provider, what should you look into? I am explaining what do I do. When I conduct training, what do I do it? You might use it as a checklist to select your service provider. And if you find that he is also doing it, you might as well think about that. So here you go. It has to be 35 hours. We do it that way. It is based on PMBOK 6, friends. But then I don't teach only using PMBOK 6. There are a lot of other reference material, which we need to use. For example, Rita Mulkai, so many mock question papers, so many papers, we need to use it. PMI very clearly says that not that everything which is asked, which is documented in PMBOK will only be asked. There are questions which are on certain topics which could be slightly outside them. They say that if you are a project manager, you need to be actually knowing these things. Now, typically when I do it in these modes which are shown there. For example, either on Saturday, Sundays, 4 hours, if it is in virtual mode, or it could be a classroom mode for the full day and so on and so forth. I provide an access to, my website for PMP. This site, I will be showing it to you, little while from now. It has a lot of resources. It's a lot of beneficial things which are available there. So we'll have a look at it, and a lot of study tools. So as long as you are getting a service provider who provides you similar things, it's good. I also typically help you by giving a detailed plan, a day level plan about how should you prepare from the end of the training till your complete examination. So I will show you that tool as well. How do I create that? And that's what, you should look into the service provider whenever you are choosing about it. So if you get a service provider who does all those things, you might as well think about that. So finally, how do we choose the proper service provider for training? Remember, friends, PMP is all about an experience in project management. It is not all about remembering so many questions and books and teaching. So always when you choose it, check the experience of the faculty. Has he actually delivered the project? Has he delivered several training programs and all that thing? And that has to be your main criteria when you decide about it. Now comes a lot of tools. The people who are teaching PMP for years together obviously end up adding a lot of tools. Quite a few of those are available on my site. I will try to show you few of those here. So look at it here. You can visit my site at www.sanjay-joshi.com, as you can see here, and hit enter. It will take you to this page. If you want to know more about it, you can actually click on this more details. You will get to see my experience and other things. And now coming back to, the PMP page. If you go to the PMP page, you will find there are several things here. Broadly, this page has two parts. One is those sources those resources which are available or open for all other people. So anyone who is actually having the, visiting this site would be able to see it. On the other hand, the lower part of it is only for registered training participant. Once you go ahead and confirm to join my training, I will be giving you access to this. So let's try to see what is all there in this page, in this web page one by one. The first one, Excel based PMP study tool. If you go ahead and click onto this PMP study tool, remember this is in the top part of it, which means even now it is available to you. You can do it. You would be able to download an Excel based tool. Now, what is this tool? If you look at this tool, let me show it to you. Here, it actually has a part called as preparation schedule. It has a title page. It has user manual, how to use this, and some more things. So what is this? This is actually a tool which allows you to do the study, So for example, let's say if you go to the process view, you will get to see there are 49 processes here. If you go ahead and take a drop down to any of these things, let's say you went ahead and clicked on something called as create WBS. The moment you click, it will go ahead and show you the description of it. And not only that, it will show you what are the inputs, what are the tools and techniques, and what are the outputs here. You can actually go ahead and select any of the process here for that matter, and you will get the similar thing here. Now, it's not all. What it does is that it has a double click feature. What does it mean? That if you go ahead and double click on this bottom up, look at it, bottom up estimation is a tool and technique. So it will go to a tab called as tools view. See here, it goes to tools view and shows you bottom up estimation with which are all the processes where it is used and so on and so forth. If you go ahead and take a drop down and let's say co-location, click on co-location, it will show that co-location is used in which all processes. If you click on the process name here, it will take you back to the process view, but for that process. Similarly, there is something called as inputs and outputs. Here, you look at it, project documents. If I take a drop down here and let's say project, I take project charter, let's say, or issue log. If I click on issue log, it will show you issue log where all it is being used, and you can double click any of them and go to that particular view and see it there as well. So this tool is absolutely useful. It actually helps you to go ahead and drill down into the thing. But one more important use of this tool is to go to the last page, and this is called as preparation schedule. Here, if you give any date, let's say 1st of April 2021 is the date on which you completed the training. And if you wish that you can spend around 4 hours a day, look at it here, 4 hours, it will go ahead and say that by 9th of May 21, you will be able to finish. Not only that, it will give you date by date, on 2nd of April, what you should read, 3rd of April, what you should do and all that. It will also give the time for you to do the, solution of certain sample problems. Look at it here, when all you should go ahead and solve everything. And finally, it said that 8th of May, you would be able to do it. If you take a drop down here and change this 4 hours to 3 hours, which means you cannot spend more than 3 hours, the date will automatically get calculated. This is a individual plan and there is actual finish here. So you can actually track your progress using this particular thing. That's the biggest advantage of this tool, and it's readily available to you. Remember, this has nothing to do with my participant. It's available free for anyone across the globe. Just visit my site and download this Excel temp tool and it will work. One more thing which you need to clear the PMP exam after the training is that keep on checking how much you are prepared, how much you are accessed, ready to go ahead and give the thing. For that, there is a tool here. You click on this access to readiness, it will open a Google form here. Since you can multiple times update it based on the thing, it is asking me to edit your response. In your case, it will come as a fresh. Once you do, it has the 4 parts. First one will check your email ID. Then next one In the next one, it will ask you certain questions related to the PMP membership training and all that thing. You need to only put appropriate tick marks or yes or no. So look at it. It says that have you, downloaded the app? Have you taken the PMI memberships? Have you done the PMI exam application and so on and so forth? If you have done the booking for the exam, in the next part of it, it will ask, different chapters. And for each chapter, where do you stand? Have you read it? Have you solved the questions and so on? This is the second part. Then there are some more questions which are like adaptive life cycle, which is agile. So these you need to only put tick mark, then say next. Once you say next, it will ask you about the mock papers. How many mock papers have you solved? These mock papers, I typically give it, as a part of the training. So you need to solve all that thing. There is a final 200 mark question which is given by the PMI. Remember PMI, once you book the exam, they give you a mock paper of 200. So have you solved it? You need to only put all those things and then finally say submit. Once you submit, friends, what happens is interesting. And that is you actually get a readiness scorecard like this. I'm clicking on it. Look at it here. It will open the individual scorecard for each individual. Here you go. Look at it. It shows that, have you taken PMI membership? If you have taken, you get 8 points. If you have taken the exam, given the application and it is approved, then you get 12 marks. If you have submitted, but it is yet not approved, you get 8. So you need to update the progress. It will tell you out of the total thing, 200, how much are you ready? It says that 101 point, here. So you will get an individual score. We say that how much you are prepared. You can update this checklist every day, every weekly, or whatever. The moment you go ahead and study, let's say someone went ahead and studied this chapter 3, and then he need to go ahead and say that I read it. His points will then become 3. Currently it is 2, so it will become 3. So finally, once you reach closer to the 200, which means you are now ready. You are actually ready to give that exam, is distinct advantage you get because of this particular type of tool there. So if your service providers are giving you some help like this, positively ask for that. If they are not, anyway, I am there. You can always reach me. One more place where the faculties or the training service provider could help you is about help filling in the PMP application. What does this mean? Is that, friends, what I do typically is that the people who are attending my training, I tell them that once you fill in the application, before submit, share it with me, so that I can actually have a look at it from the wording perspective, if there is any improvement to be done and all that thing. So sort of a first-hand review I do. And if there are any changes, I suggest it. And based on that, you can go ahead and submit it. It actually improves the chances that, if your application comes back for, correction and all that thing will get reduced because there would be a review. There are 4 in-training mock tests, which is at the end of every 8 hours. So for example, if you come here, you will realize here, there are test paper. If you click on any of them, you would be able to see it. This part will be available only after you register for the thing. So currently, without doing the registration, if you do it, it may not open. But once you are done, these are the different questions there, and they are available here. This is one more thing which you must typically check, that your faculty should give you enough mock test. Without that, your preparation is not full. Secondly, for each of them, I go ahead and evaluate each person's responses. So if you go ahead and solve question paper 1, I will go ahead and give you a specific score, saying that how much are you scoring in that particular paper, including the breakup, saying that how did you do chapter by chapter, how did you do by knowledge area, how did you do by the process group. So that's how I typically give it to you. One more interesting, source of information which is there, and I wish to show it to you, is a notes. On this particular page, again, it is limited only for the people who have registered for the thing, which includes a special notes here. Now, what are those notes? If you click on this class notes, you will get a book. It's almost 30 pages book. It has all important notes, about the whole of the training. Look at it, what is project, program, portfolio, and so on and so forth. So basically, it's a notes which is available. These notes keep on getting improved day by day. With time, I keep on improving those notes. So when you are actually selecting a service provider for your training, try to see if he is providing you all those things. That's very important. He need to provide you those things, then that actually is a good training. One more interesting tool what I have developed is PMP Learning Android App. This Android app is actually a very special app. How do you do that? Is that you go to my website again, and in this website, you will find a mobile, the handset picture here. Click onto this and it will automatically download it onto your handset from the Google Play Store. It's a open Android app which I have created and hosted onto the Google Play Store. What does this app do? It is actually a study app. Look at it here like this. If you open that app, I will just show it to you. Click there and it will actually open, the screens. Go down to introduction. You will realize what are all the topics there. There is something called as a knowledge areas. If you click on that, it will show what are the knowledge areas. You can click there. Then let's say a process called as sequence activity. Click onto this and you will get to see that, what are the tools and techniques, what are the inputs, and so on and so forth. You can go back and let's say you went to the introduction, and then in the knowledge areas, let's say you are actually on the risk part of it and you want to see your knowledge, you want to test. Click on this question mark and it will give you a random question on the risk chapter. You can solve that particular thing. Click, it will evaluate you, and then you can actually go back there. Similarly, it has one more feature there, and that feature is basically test your knowledge. If you click onto this, it will show you all the topics here. Let's say you want to test your knowledge on monitoring and control. Click on it and you would get a sample paper with 10 questions there, and you can solve it here. On the app, you can directly solve it. And once you solve it, you click and then it will actually click. It will say that how many were correct and all that. Click here and it will say that when all you solved it, so your past track, it will keep. This app is completely free, available to anyone. You need not have to join my training at all for this. You can even today download this app. It is readily available to you. If you are getting the training providers who are giving you all those things, think about it. Friends, you need to choose the training service provider well. Then you would actually have a good chances of you are clearing the PMP with a very easy thing as well as in the timely thing. And that's where I would suggest that whenever you decide about choosing the PMP training, choose a service provider who gives you all those things. Hope you like this particular description. If you are interested in actually joining my training, if you want to actually take it ahead, get in touch with me. You can either, visit this site, and there my email ID is there. My email ID is also given there, as well as the phone number is given there. So if you wish, you can always get in touch with me, and then we can take it ahead from there. See you very soon, maybe in one of the PMP batches. Till then, bye and best of luck for your endeavor to go ahead and take the PMP very soon. Thanks a lot.